2023 meeting of the Traffic and Parking Advisory Board to order. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. The Traffic and Parking Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic items. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding this item. All items require 2 meetings before the Common Council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, March 28th at 6 p.m. and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, April 11th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak. For this afternoon, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask you to keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. The board has adopted a public participation policy which provides 15 minutes for public comment on a first-come, first-served basis. Citizens must provide their name and address and speak on matters related to traffic issues within the authority of the board. Statements should be addressed to the board members and not to staff. Items that are on the agenda should be addressed at the time that the item is read, not during the period for public comments. Statements are limited to 3 minutes, and citizens may only provide comment one time unless permission is granted. All written comments sent to the TRAB at Oshkosh will be distributed and become part of the public record. If anyone requires reasonable ADA accommodations, please contact the office. So with that, roll call.
Christensen?
Here.
Jasinski?
Here.
Hanson? Here. Hillman?
Here.
Wanschneider?
Here.
Hartman?
Here. Right. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our February 14th meeting. Move from Dan, correct? Okay. Second from Barry. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen?
Aye.
Jasinski?
Aye.
Hanson? Aye. Hillman?
Aye.
Wanschneider?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye. We have no old business, I don't believe. Nothing holding over. We have new business. First is to request a change intersection of Eagle Street and Bismarck Avenue from a 2-way to a 4-way stop.
I'm going to ask the board if we can change the order a little bit, because Jenny from the East Central Regional Planning Commission, our Safe Routes to School coordinator, I think she's planning on coming. She's not here yet, but I know she has to come from Menasha, so they'll give her a few minutes. If she doesn't make it, then I can cover it, but in the meanwhile, maybe we could give her a couple minutes if we did number 2 first.
Okay, we'll move to number 2. I would like to comment, I've been chair for 2 meetings, and there are more people those 2 meetings than we had the 6 months before that. So, request for no parking on West Whipple Avenue, south side from Oregon Street to Red Oak Court.
Okay, so I believe that might be what some people are here to talk about, but I'll lay out this issue, and then let me do that first. Basically, we have generic, which is here, and they have grown quite a bit, and they have a lack of employee parking. I know that they're doing a little bit of expansion, and I believe they're building a parking lot, but in the meanwhile, we've gotten some citizen complaints because a lot of the employees are parking in this area here on both sides of the street. So it's making it difficult for some semis and vehicles to traverse the road with the cars parked on both sides. We did our planning department and I also did some observations out. It is pretty heavily parked. And we do restrict parking in most industrial parks just to allow for semis to get through. And eventually, this is the aviation park, industrial park is back in this area, so eventually it is going to be more industrial. And there's some other developments going on in that area. I think the plastics company is expanding down here. So there is a smaller residential area down here on Red Oak Court. The street is 36 feet wide, which that doesn't necessarily warrant restricting parking. However, with cars heavily parked on both sides, it does make it difficult for vehicles to see, especially at the entrance and exits to these driveways. There really isn't any crash history because there's, pretty low volume streets. There is ample on-street parking available in the area. So what staff was recommending is restricting parking to one side of the road, which would be the north side, and removing it possibly on the south side. That would allow for some of those vehicles to still park, and it would give us more room. I've learned since this item was noticed, though, that half of this Ripple Avenue is in the city jurisdiction and half of it is in the town. So we did notify the town, and they were unable to attend tonight, but they would like to discuss this further before we take action. So what I recommend is that we allow anybody that wants to discuss and bring up their issues and concerns, but then lay it over for the vote until I can talk to the town and get their input. I have no idea, frankly, where they're at with it, if they're for it, against it, or indifferent. But the city, the city does have jurisdiction down to, I want to say, like past their second driveway somewhere in this area. I got to get the exact boundary. So once we talk to the town, we can find out that if they want to go with us and we want to restrict parking, and they want to restrict parking on the south side of the road, or we could choose as a city just to restrict parking on our side and they could not restrict parking on their side. Or they might be indifferent to the whole thing and think it's not necessary. So, but since we noticed it, I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to give their input.
Which side is that as we look at it?
So this is the south side,
Okay.
and this would be the north side. So the north side would be obviously closer to the building, and then it would move some of these vehicles off of this side, which is a little more, you can see there's a couple private properties there.
All right, anyone like to speak to this issue? Please go to the podium, identify yourself.
My name is Neil Androsco. I live at 3836 Red Oak Court. I'm one of the neighbors that have been trying to drive through this area. I've lived here for 18 years, and traffic's gotten worse and worse and worse, continuously worse because there are more trucks. It's not a light trafficked area. It's very heavy traffic. There's probably, some mornings when I walk the dog at 6 a.m., I'll see 10 or 12 semis stacked up to get into Avco and or Generac. And they're in the road, so people even want to go to work, can't get through. It's just a mess down there. It doesn't just stop at 6:30, it goes for all day long, off and on. So if you drive by there, like I did today coming out here, there's 16 cars parked mainly on the north side of the road. Probably 5 or 6 on the south side of the road. Makes it very tight. And for the semi-drivers, I can't believe they're in here complaining up a storm. They just are frustrated as all heck down there. But for us, it's just a dangerous situation. When I walk the dog, if I'm on the south side of the road, people will come out of the Rebel Court, and they drive on the north side of the road to avoid me, and the trucks coming out of Generac or Avco don't look that way, look this way, and they drive right out. I saw my neighbor get almost whacked twice down there. I almost got nailed driving in when I called and complained about this, because I almost got nailed twice in one day. Because the snowbanks are high, the people are parking, some of the Generac employees park in the lot, you can see a little black spot there. Someone parking there, they back out, without even looking. They back out. So my suggestion is, my request is, you ban parking on both sides of the road, like you do in all other industrial areas. There isn't one spot down there on Oshkosh truck area. So 35th Ave, Marvel, Medalist, Walkout, 28th Street, there's no parking in any of them. None. Go over by Universal By the Southeast Industrial Park, Universal Ave, there's no parking. Badger Ave, there's no parking. Oakwood Road, there's no parking. You go out north, Furno Road, North Main, Mosier Road, there's no parking. Why is there parking here at all? There's no reason for it. And per the city codes, Generac is supposed to be supplying parking for all of their people. And when I drove out, I saw 16 cars parked there. Casually, I drove down Oregon Street. I counted at least 20 open spots in their lot. So there's probably adequate parking now, they just aren't using it. And they are working on a lot that isn't done yet. So if nothing else, stop parking on the north side of the road for now, and say when the lot is done, stop on the south side as well, to give the truckers a chance. Those guys struggle to get there on time. They sit there and wait for 15 minutes to get down the road. That's stupid, and it's dangerous. Not for one, but for all of us. And there's neighbors in our neighborhood from 25 to 90 years old that are driving, and there's 31 people driving down the road. So it's not just a small neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Up. Podium, please.
David Brunover, 3860 Red Oak Court. I'm just a little ways down from Neil. One thing I wanted to also mention that with the truck situation as well, one thing to remember is that when the trucks have problems getting in and out with it, with the cars on the both sides like that, some are tempted not to read the dead end sign, and they actually try to go down there to back up to come back around to try the different direction. Well, I've seen poor semi-truck drivers backing all the way, that's like 3/4 of a mile backwards, trying to get back because they didn't pay enough attention to the sign because of this congestion. And I'm not even sure that once you have cars on both sides like that, how much trouble like emergency vehicles and things like that would even have getting down that road. And like Neil said, I also noticed coming down the road, cars parked on both sides, you go around a corner, and there's still parking available in Generac's parking lot. So I understand that they park on the outside by the road because, well, the doorway to Generac's employee entrance is closer there than it is in the back of their parking lot. I understand that, but it still doesn't do any of the traffic or pedestrians that try to walk around that area any good at all. And it is also a well-walked area for pedestrians because they come from the complex that's just on the other side of Oregon Street. So it's heavily walked as well as driven. And when you've got cars on both sides like that, you can't see people trying to dodge in and out, and it'd be horrible if something would happen that way too, especially when a lot of them are also walking with pets. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments, sir?
Wayne Daniels, 3778 Red Oak Court. I'm at the very end of the Red Oak Court, and like everybody else has said so far, the traffic on the parking on both sides is really narrows the driving lane, particularly in the winter now, when it snows and the plow comes down. While all the cars are parked there, it doesn't get plowed out. So then when they leave, all that snow is there and it firms up overnight, and then they can't park in the morning, so they're even further out toward the center of the road when they park the next morning, because a lot of times it doesn't get cleaned up overnight. Additionally, I've seen there's a fire plug on the north side of the road, on the west end of the Generac property, and I've seen a number of times cars parked right in front of the fire plug, and that is illegal as well. So.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hi, my name's Larry Last. I live at 3827 Red Oak Court. I just wanted to speak up for some of the neighbors that are a little bit more shy, maybe, because it's not just one or two of my neighbors that are complaining. We all feel the same way. The other day, my wife and I were driving down. I wish my phone died. I'd like to show you the pictures of what it really looks like, because that looks like, what are you guys complaining about? When there's two lanes parked on each curb, you can't get through there. And the other day, my wife and I were driving down there, and a semi-driver thought he could back up. Well, he wedged it in there so good that he couldn't move. So he had to go into Generac to get the car to get moved. Meanwhile, we're sitting there waiting to get by. So I finally did something I shouldn't say in front of the police, but I trespassed and I went through that parking lot there to get around them. Now that's kind of ridiculous. So I would say that minimum south side should be no parking. I like to see no parking. And I don't know how far it goes down, but I can't imagine my township that would be against it. So, and during the winter, it's really bad because, as my neighbor just said, when the snow plow goes, some of those cars don't move. I don't know if those guys are working double shifts or what, but it gets really narrow, and it's just it's a safety concern for everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
One more. My name is Jim Drummond. I'm at 3811 Red Oak Court, so I'm a part of that neighborhood. It seems like the zoning addresses everything that we're having an issue with. They're supposed to have parking for their people, which doesn't include street parking. They've got outdoor storage, you can see it right in the picture there. And heavy industrial doesn't allow for outside storage like that without a barrier unless they get a conditional use permit. So, and then the garbage off of that stuff, all the packaging and stuff is all over the fields, up and down the road. So they haven't been great neighbors that way. But there shouldn't be a parking issue if they were paying attention to the zoning and the zoning was being enforced.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll bring it back here. I think that the motion really is to lay it over for another meeting.
Yeah, I guess I have so I heard what everybody said, and I mean, I agree that we that's why I recommend the no parking on the south, but I think that, I agree. I mean, it is heavily parked. I've went out there last few weeks, and I know you're working with planning on some of the storage issues and things like that. That's our planning department that works on those and zoning. However, I do recommend or ask that, I don't know who the town board or chairperson is, but if you'd reach out to them and explain, your concerns, I think that would help. So then when I talk to them, because I think Red Oak Court is in the town. So we as a board can deal with half of the street, but the town has jurisdiction for the other half. That's why it's a little more complicated. And they didn't want us to necessarily take action until they had a chance to weigh in. So I think if you, as town residents, reach out to them and explain what the issues are, then I can talk to them. And if they're on board, maybe we can do something together to restrict the parking, at least half of the street. However, I will talk to our planning and zoning department as well and express the other concerns. I know, like you mentioned, they are constructing a parking lot, but I don't know how that ties into our codes and ordinances, and if that's gonna solve their parking issue. I mean, you are correct that in most industrial parks we do prohibit parking, just for the main reason is because the semi-traffic needs to get in and out, and when there's cars parked, that becomes a problem. So I guess I'm recommending we lay it over just for that reason, is I need to get input from the town. Otherwise, we can only take action on like half of this problem.
The storage as well. If you didn't have that storage there, that's several more vehicles that could be parked there.
Yeah, and I know that, I think our planning department was working on that, but I don't know where they're at with that.
Is this a 24/7 operation? Or?
Yes,
I believe
Okay.
so.
7 days a week.
3 shifts. Yeah, like I used to work at Bemis, and we had, those parking issues. So we had numerous shifts. We had like 5 to 5, 6 to 6, 7 to 7, 8 to 4, 12 to 12, Just create more shifts so people are coming and going at more different times. So. Is there any plans to widen the street at all?
No, that street's in good, it's in relatively good condition. I can't see, I don't think that.
I sure wouldn't vote
anywhere.
for that. I mean, that street's in great, really good condition. It's concrete.
That
I
won't
drove
be
down it too, and it's,
Because we had no parking on the street too, but as we were given to build a new parking lot, we got a waiver to park on Moser, because that was, big problems too. We could only park on one side, even with the waiver,
sir, do you have additional information? If you do, then you can go there.
Planning commission, zoning commission, which they're constructed and they're using about the bottom 4 feet of probably 18 or 20-foot high racks, because they're not gonna work. They built racks that are 6 feet apart. You're supposed to have a forklift down there and turn it, put something up 20 feet in the air. It's not gonna work. They're finding out the hard way because they paid me to put it all together. It's not gonna work. So I was to complain because they're putting the stuff like that shows right there, that's in the right of way. And you're right out to the curb with some stuff initially. If you back your camera up coming down the road, see the only bad spot on the road is between that, a little bit right there, see it's sewer? That now is crushed down, and the semi-drivers are going across that because of all the crap in the parking lot. And the city's working on trying to get them to fix that as well.
Okay, thank you. So,
That must be an old picture. That's nothing represented what was up there now, nothing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's 2013 was what the Google photo
Before
is.
Generac came, that's on Balder, and Balder's a nice clean company.
so my assumption is we need to do a motion and a vote to lay it over.
Yep.
So we actually take some action today,
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to lay it over to the next meeting.
okay? So Dan,
Second.
Barry, got a second on that? Any further discussion on laying it over? Call the roll, please.
Christensen,
Aye.
Jazinski.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Pearlman.
Aye.
Longenschneider.
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye. Why don't we,
All right, to
why don't
be
we finish
continued.
3? Let's finish 3 and then go back to 1. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. I think this is a relatively easy one to do. Anyone want to speak on this? All right.
What's that, number 3?
Yeah.
Item 3, it's remove small section 10-minute parking on Algoma Boulevard.
I don't see that on my,
It was revised. It was on the revised. Yeah, please leave. I mean, please,
Thanks.
feel free to leave. Unless you're really interested in what we're going to do next.
Yeah. Yep, we will definitely let you know. Yep. But in the meanwhile, yeah, please contact the town so they.
So this section of Algoma is in front of where AT&T used to
Yeah,
be.
I can pull it up, but it's basically, it's across from City Hall. There was a small area where AT&T used to be, and it's no longer there, so that 10-minute parking's no longer needed.
Right.
So it was actually, as our sign department was going out and doing some updating of signs, they said, well, why is that there?
So it got missed 10 or
Good question.
15 years ago when AT&T left.
It's basically just, nobody ever brought it up, so.
Sure. So do we have a motion on this?
I'll move.
Perlman moves. Schneider seconded that? Right? Or
yeah,
some-
so she seconded it.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. I heard he was closer to me, and that's what I heard.
Yeah, and I could hear.
So, any discussion on this? Call the roll?
Christensen,
Aye.
Jazinski.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Pearlman.
Aye.
Longenschneider.
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye. Back to item number 1. Request to change intersection Eagle and Bismarck Avenue from a 2 to a 4-way stop.
You just wanna sit up here, Jim?
We picked our grandchildren up at the Tippler for years, and that is a chaotic stop at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:30 in the afternoon.
All right, so just give us a second to get the presentation up here, but I'll pass this on.
Thank you.
This is,
This is the same one as,
it is the same,
Okay.
just different colors.
Oh, so it's the same one? Okay, so, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The first one you said?
Yes. So your computer apparently doesn't have the same fonts we have at our office. So it's,
Well, I will lay this out to start. So this, if it doesn't work, that's fine. But basically, the principal at Perry Tippler Middle School had contacted the police department, who then contacted me with concerns for students walking and biking, as well as motorists picking kids up before and after school at this intersection. The principal had reported a number of near-miss accidents. The police department then went out there, kind of monitored the situation, and they did report it's pretty chaotic. So we have the East Central Regional Plan Commission, who Jenny's with. They have what's called the Safe Routes to School program. So I thought, oh, perfect, this is a good thing for them to work on. So they came out there and they did an audit. And Jenny's going to go over that and kind of what the recommendations were.
I'm gonna not do the presentation because the fonts aren't matching, but everything that I'm going to talk about is on the papers in front of you. As Jim said, my name is Jenny. I am the Safe Routes to School Coordinator at East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. For those of you not familiar with Safe Routes to School, it is a national movement. We aim to make it safer, more convenient, and fun for students and children of all ages and abilities to walk and bike to school. When Jim contacted us, the school was actually requesting that there be right turn only signage added at all four legs of the intersection of Bismarck Avenue and Eagle Street. When we went out there and did our audit, we really felt like, well, those signs aren't very enforceable. They only wanted it to be during 3:30 to 4 o'clock, so you don't have a high tendency of people following those restrictions either. But it was going to create a problem or just push the problem down a block further if we had cars turning only right to the right. So your second page has a walk and bike audit that shows what we saw the day we did our observation. We showed up about 30 minutes before school got out, and we drove around the school, and we also walked routes around the school, looking at everything, not just that specific intersection. We look at curb cuts, sign inventory, crosswalks, and sidewalk conditions. The school day at Perry Tippler ends at 3:37, and by 4 o'clock, all of the traffic that we saw was gone. So it's a really short time period that there's a high volume moving through there. But in that time frame, we saw 122 vehicles move through the intersection of Bismarck and Eagle Street. There was 3 staff outside of the school that were helping kids cross. 2 of them were on the west end of Bismarck, helping kids cross the street to their parents where they were parked on Bismarck Avenue. The 3rd staff member was actually at the intersection crossing them. That intersection had 68 kids move through that intersection probably within 10 minutes. They were pretty much gone before all the vehicles were gone, so it was a very short amount of time. There was also over 80 students that crossed on Eagle Street at that 4th Avenue, so the majority of their students are even crossing there away from where all the traffic is. I will mention also, we did pull some crash data using the Wisconsin's TOPS lab, so that's Traffic Operations and Safety Laboratory. From 2018 to 2022, there have been 12 crashes in that area. Of those 12, 8 of them have happened Monday through Friday, and 9 of them have happened between the hours of 7 and 8 or 3 to 4, so kind of those high traffic volume at times, okay? The next page has a table on with our recommendations, and then the following page is the map that points out where those recommendations are. We did make several programming and education recommendations to the school, but the recommendation we're focused on with you today is that letter A, where we are requesting a 4-way stop at Eagle Street and Bismarck Avenue. While we were there making observations, we saw a lot of confusion for drivers as to whose turn it was to go. There is also like a pedestrian crossing sign right at the intersection that we almost felt like drivers are currently mistaking for a stop sign because it's almost in the same place that you would expect a stop sign to go. When my staff and I drove through that intersection, we had a car, we were turning left onto Bismarck, and he thought we were stopping, and he came out and almost hit us while we were in that intersection. So we felt like or making it a four-way stop clears up that confusion for drivers. Everybody knows when it's their turn to proceed through the intersection, and it will reduce some of that congestion because there won't be so many cars backed up on Eagle Street waiting for their turn. Or, on Eagle Street waiting, or Bismarck.
Bismarck.
Excuse me, waiting for their turn to enter the intersection.
Thanks. Yeah, and the other two, so option A and then option B and C are things that I told Jenny we can work on once the street painting season is upon us, which is C was repainting the crosswalk, which we do every year anyway, but we'll definitely do that. And then B was possibly painting some curb yellow near the crosswalks so that cars aren't parking so close to them. But back to so converting the two-way to the four-way, and I put in your packet, when we look at things like that, we look at the warrants, and then there's always the plus and minuses. The downside is that it's not warranted based on the daily traffic volume or necessarily the crash history, although it sounds like there has been some crash history or sightline issues the majority of the day, but there is during those peak periods. So we try to avoid installing unwarranted stop signs because that can increase safety issues as people tend to disobey unwarranted stop signs. However, the benefit of converting this intersection to four-way is that, as Jenny had mentioned, it'll better organize traffic specifically before and after school. It'd make motorists more aware of their surroundings as they would need to stop and look for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. As the majority of this traffic at this intersection is school-related, I think a case can be made for this change. Near misses are hard to quantify, but as Jenny and the Safe Routes to School team and the police department have observed in the area, there are near misses and there is a lot of confusion in that area. So it's probable there were some near misses. Therefore, I would recommend approval.
All right, so I think we need a motion, and Perlman moves. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second from,
I want to say, could we maybe add flashers on the four-way stop?
That's possibly. Generally we, we don't necessarily have flashers. However, generally we would start with, we'd put the stop signs in and see how effective they are. And then we have done that in the past. We have flagged new stop signs. That's a good idea so that people are more aware that it's a new stop sign. Eventually those get lost in the background, but initially it gives people more awareness. We generally don't, we do have a couple LED stop signs, but generally those are more for areas like where it's difficult to see at night or where there's been some crash history. I know there's one, I'm trying to think of the road, but anyway, there's one by UW Oshkosh, but that's there because we had a lot of issues with drivers missing the stop sign. And ironically, there's a house right across from it, and they hit the house a couple times. But that one, since we put the LED stop sign in, we haven't had any issues. So that one's been working well. But this is more of an issue before and after school. So I would recommend that we start with, we'll flag it to make it more aware to start with, and then if we have issues, we can address those as we go.
Tippler's not due for any changes in that new school update or whatever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't believe so. My only observation is when you're coming on Eagle must be going north, that's going to be a one block because the Eagle dead ends into the street that goes past Franklin. But
Yeah.
I support this, having dealt with that intersection hundreds of times. So, any further comments? Are we ready for the call roll?
Christensen, Jinsey.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Pearlman.
Aye.
Schleich.
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye. All right, staff statements, anything from staff?
The only statement I had is I believe I mentioned that at my other, board and commission that the council is currently, they have a committee of a couple council members that are doing a study, on boards and commissions. So I don't know what the outcome of that's gonna be, but I think they're due to report to council in the next month. I know they were looking at, a lot of different options to address the issue of, the main issue is the ability to staff boards is getting harder and harder, so they're trying to come up with some ideas of how they can make that easier. And then also encourage more members to apply and or participate in seeing if there's a way to better organize that. I know some boards and commissions really have a hard time getting a quorum as well, so I guess we'll see what they come up with, but.
We've
that's
already
going
taken
on.
the parking board under our wing.
Yes, yep.
a few years
Yeah.
ago, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, I know they're looking at, there's the possible consolidations, there's the number of board members on each board, there's the length of terms, things like that, I know they were looking at just to see what the options are. You're right, though, last time we did the study was maybe 4 or 5 years ago they did it, and at that time, we combined the parking advisory board with this board, so the traffic and parking got combined into what's currently the traffic and parking review advisory board.
I think we're barely, you know, kind of scraping by as for members and stuff too, that, I wouldn't recommend any changes for us, you know.
Right,
Unless we were able to get like another board, where we took Jim Staple off the other board and, where you're bringing attending members,
right. Yeah, that helped last time, because that did, obviously you consolidate 2 boards, then you have a pool for, but, like I said, I don't know what they're gonna come up with, but I just wanna make you aware that's going on, so maybe there'll be changes in the future.
Lindsay and Bill Miller are working on it, so.
Yeah, yep,
So we'll see
so.
what comes out.
And other than that, road construction season has started. They've started working on the utilities on a number of projects. I think Wisconsin's our biggest project this year, but there are a number of them ongoing. And then, like the city manager talked about at the State of the City last night, there's a couple others. Washburn and Osborne are being done with some ARPA funds, some asphalt, and then,
Witzel, too, they had all the mulch on there.
yeah, that's I get a lot of questions about that, but.
Well, everybody thought it was gonna be a road diet, like you're trying to.
No,
block something
that's,
off.
the short version of it is that it's a sanitary sewer project for the WIT development, which is right there by Mercy Hospital. And I know there were some issues with the sanitary districts, so the city decided to put our own sanitary sewer in there. However, they had some issues at the beginning with some permitting that got delayed, and that pushed the project back, which unfortunately then pushed it into winter. So it's lasted a lot longer than anyone anticipated. However, I was out there yesterday, they're out there working away, so. But it is road construction season, so that one is kind of on the second half, but all the regular construction season projects are just on the first half, which is generally they start with the utilities and then the road's usually the last thing to get paved, but.
Okay.
Be aware when you're driving and be aware of the workers.
Well, I want to mention, I got a neighbor that's disabled and uses one of those electric wheelchairs, and 9th and Knapp, there's, the stoplight post is right there, and you got the ramps for the wheelchairs there, and there's really not enough room to operate a wheelchair on either of the 2 ramps. And since that restaurant has been closed for a while, I was thinking it would be a good time to maybe, not necessarily do the construction now, but siphon off a sliver of land from that restaurant, so you could maybe put the wheelchair to the parking lot side of the light pole, or.
There are quite a few of those around the city.
Yeah, the issue with it is, so you're on to one thing, but the issues with those older intersections are, like, there's only so much room, right? So, you know, whenever we put a new intersection or new road in, obviously we make everything ADA compliant. Some of those older intersections, I mean, we have issues too with some of them where we can't quite get the push buttons where they need to be or where we want to be because there's not enough room. So I'll mention that to our Public Works Department, but yes, it's possible that there's not enough right-of-way there, so they may need additional right-of-way if and when we could redo that, so.
Like I said, you know, since the place has been closed for a number of years, it'd be a good time to just sliver off a
Yeah,
portion of their property.
I don't know how that works, or if that's possible, but I'll definitely mention it to them.
That no parking sign on 11th has worked pretty well.
Good.
One day I was driving up to it and I seen a car pull up and parked in the area where you shouldn't be parking. And there was a lady and she got out and looked at the sign and she just went and drove away completely.
Oh, good. Well, it's working then.
But yeah, I mean, before that sign, people were parking there pretty frequently.
Good.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
are you gonna match the width of Wisconsin to match the width south of,
It's gonna be the current,
our,
I asked, the Public Works.
it
Director
comes
about
up
it.
wider up to New
Yeah, yeah.
York?
But it's gonna be reconstructed at the current width. I asked him about that at a meeting a couple
Oh.
meetings ago.
Okay.
Brody was here.
Oh, and yeah, their Public Works Director was there. I was gonna say that I don't know for sure, but.
Oh, I asked him,
Ask him.
I asked him when he was at
Narrows
our
up a
meeting.
little bit as you go north of
Yep.
New York.
Yeah. And then it widens up again at Bent, I think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was hoping they
So
would
that's
make
the
it
next-
wider too. That's why I asked him about it. And he said, no,
why
it's gonna
wouldn't
be
it
at
be
the.
the same
current-
south of New York as it is?
Yeah, cause if I'm driving in that direction, I usually take Wisconsin, instead of Jackson, but I mean, that one portion is so terrible that I haven't done that for a while. But I used to always drive Wisconsin.
survived the
Yeah.
potholes?
I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, I'd have to ask our Public Works Department, but generally, our typical city street, when we reconstruct them, are 32 feet wide. And I don't know the details, but it's possible too that their right-of-way changes. I know in a lot of areas in the city that's a big
Dictates.
part of the issue is
Yeah, it
how much
dictates.
right-of-way we have and how wide you can make the
Yeah.
street, but yeah, I'd have to ask him to.
He said it was gonna be at the current width.
Yeah, right. Why, I would assume that's why, but I'll ask.
Any other comments? Barry?
Two things. Can you get us some feedback in a bit about Bauman Street and the marina? So we know the rest of the story as it unfolds and whether you think they'll be back to us again with safety issues and parking?
As far as, so the angled parking, council did, actually, that's a second vote tonight. So yeah, I can give you an update at the, next meeting if they approve that. So tonight, they would approve the angled parking. So I could give you an update on that, but yeah, the continuing saga of the marina, I can inform you as I know more, but I don't really know much more than that right now.
It seems like a lot of things seem to be falling by the wayside, like this deal we had today with Generac too, like they're not enforcing the codes.
Yeah, I know that, so the two different issues, the Bauman Street, I know that our, like Ms. Nyforth said at the last meeting, I know she's working with marina owners to try to come to resolution on that because they do need to come into compliance. And as the one gentleman, I know that he's been in contact with our planning and zoning as well about generic and their storage and the code violations there. So I know they've been working on those issues, but.
The other thing is, at some point in the future, are we gonna be looking at streets around the enlarged Boys and Girls Club? They're gonna have a tremendous increase, I would assume, in children and teens there and in traffic, and I don't know if the main entrance is moving to Monroe, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me that it would be warranted as construction moves on to take a look at traffic flow and what's gonna be.
Yeah, I know that that was evaluated when they submitted their site plan. Before the site plan gets approved, all the city departments have to look at it, and traffic is one of the things they consider. I know our engineers look at that. I look at it as well, but the engineers look at it real in detail, like where are the entrances gonna be, how many are there gonna be? So all those things have already been addressed. What we may look at eventually is if any traffic patterns change or if anything needs to be changed. But as far as the actual site plan, that's already been evaluated and approved. It would be more if issues arise once they develop, then we can take a look if there's things we can do to help.
Speed bumps in Monroe, or
There are speed bumps
there are on
already.
Parkway,
Yeah.
but not on Monroe where they're developing.
Yep, and that's a whole nother topic. Speed bumps as a city policy, we only install those with street reconstructions, which is how they got in on, is it Parkway? Because that road was reconstructed. And we do that, and there's a number of reasons for that. They're pretty expensive unless you're reconstructing the street. And B, that gives us an opportunity to evaluate them before the construction and see how it fits in. And C, I literally get a request for, I don't know, I could probably name 100 streets where I've got requests for speed bumps. And if we installed them, we'd have them on literally every street in the city. So we try to manage that process. So at city policy, we only consider those with reconstructions.
Any other comments? Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Perlman? All right,
All right, thank you.
all in favor? Do we
Aye.
vote with our feet?
Before the next meeting.
Yeah, that one.